Maybe this is your first year of trying to navigate the holidays sober, or maybe it's your 20th year and things just feel difficult for you. Regardless of where you're at on your journey of recovery, you won't want to miss today's show. I'm your host, Marcy Langlois, and you're listening to Living Beyond Limits. We're so excited that you've decided to join us today. We're going to provide techniques that you can use to prepare yourself both mentally and emotionally, to help make the holidays a sober success this year. Let's face it, staying sober daily can present its own challenges, and often there are plenty. But then add the holidays on top of it, and it can be a bit tricky, honestly, if you aren't prepared. I personally like to take myself right back down memory lane and remind myself of holidays when I was drinking and using. I mean, come on, that is a trip. I was a hot mess. I didn't show up to engagements on time, or sometimes I just didn't even show up. And when I did show up, unfortunately, I had already been drinking, usually for quite a while before I got there. And I was so out of line, and often I hurt other people's feelings. I wasn't thoughtful in any particular way, and my focus was on getting my next drink. It's awful to say that out loud and admit it, but it's the truth. It's so easy to see other people drinking and enjoying themselves and think, oh, I could have just a glass of wine and sit in front of the fire just like them, and totally buy into that idea, right? But for me, that is an incredible twisted lie. The truth is, I never sat in front of the fire and had a glass of wine. A glass of wine. I went to the bar, I got loaded, and then things went downhill from there. After this dose of reality about what things used to look like for me, what I never ever want to return to, and the clarity of the reality of my own drinking, then I feel much more prepared to face the world during the holidays and to do it sober. So, what can you do to prepare yourself to stay sober through the holidays? Well, first, start by being mentally prepared. It doesn't always appeal to the most people to take that trip down memory lane back to your active days of addiction, because it never, ever feels good to revisit. But for me, it has been one of the primary things that has kept me sober. So the first piece of advice that I have for you is to revisit your active days of addiction. Recall what your drinking used to entail. See yourself in the act of the behavior that you are the least proud of. So really, like, pick the worst memory you can think of. Feel what it felt like the next day to wake up and remember how you behaved the day before. Remember that huge hangover? Ugh, that lasted all day or sometimes multiple days. Then the dumpster full of shame that felt like a cloak that you had to wear. On top of that, the self-disgust. It was awful. Remember it well and feel it. This exercise, really, let's be very clear, is not to reshame you in any way, but rather simply to remind you of the damage that you caused yourself, and then obviously the people that you loved. Oftentimes, it is incredibly helpful to know who we no longer want to be so that we can be fully committed to be who we want to be. When you've taken the time to revisit your time of active addiction and get clear on who you no longer want to be, you are now ready to move on. Next, it's great to acknowledge that our culture romanticizes drinking in so many ways. I mean, really, it's everywhere. It's everywhere I go. Across billboards, TV commercials, movies, you name it. Alcohol is involved in our society. They make it look like all of these people are drinking with impunity, and it gives this idea that everyone can drink that way. But hold the phone. It's not true. So to be very clear here, don't buy into the idea of romanticizing the drink. Simply stop. Stop all the thoughts that bring up the illusion that you can have one drink and have a lovely time. If you're like me, you never had one glass of wine or any alcoholic beverage. It's highly likely that if your intentions were to sit in front of a fire with your partner and just enjoy the evening and discuss life, that actually what ended up really happening was that you ended up drinking far more than you intended, and the conversation ended up going south, and more often than not ended in an argument. That's the truth of how people with addiction issues drink. We don't have elegant evenings with the fire on and dreams come true. No, we destroy dreams because of the addiction. So no matter how tempting it is to romanticize the drink, don't. Sobriety takes a daily commitment and sometimes a minute by minute commitment. How do you maintain your commitment to sobriety? Revisit your own personal commitment to sobriety. Ask yourself, why is it that you're so devoted to staying sober? What drove you to the point that you were willing to change? You see, I was tired of hurting the people that I love the most, and I wanted to stop the generational patterns of addiction in my family. I'm very, very clear about why I am so committed to staying the course, even on the hardest days. So get clear on your commitment and recommit yourself as often as it takes to stay sober each and every day. Now that we're clear on what it takes to get the mindset right, let's take a look at the emotional aspect. You're probably thinking, but Marcy, how am I going to prepare myself emotionally for something that hasn't even happened yet? Fair question. Super valid. But hang on and just hear me out. Feelings for an addict are like kryptonite. We typically don't want to feel anything other than good, and we will avoid all of the uncomfortable emotions like the plague. That doesn't work though. We think it does, and we even tell ourselves that it does, but it doesn't. We have to get emotionally prepared, and you can start with dealing with any triggers that may happen as soon as they happen. The idea here is to manage the emotions that come up and process through them right then and there. As soon as they come up, deal with it. Unchecked emotions often lead to needing relief, and relief comes from drinking. Staying on top of any emotions and dealing with triggers as soon as they come up is key to avoiding drinking. Watch for triggers and be ready to process through each situation as it presents itself. The good news about the holidays is that hopefully we get to be with the people that we love the most. But unfortunately, we also are around the people that can be the most difficult for us. Think about who you may be encountering throughout the holiday season and assess whether or not you can be around them. Remember, the most important thing of all is that your recovery remains intact every single day. Some of the people that may be at holiday celebrations may not be the people that are safe for you to be around because they may have caused you harm or injury, or you could have also wronged them in some way, and that hasn't been resolved yet. So things may not always be like this, but for now, it may be wise to just simply avoid these situations. Be certain to think through each invitation and the folks that may be attending that same invite. And if indeed that is an invitation that you can accept and feel confident that you can go without issue. Self-care is critical to maintaining healthy recovery, but especially emotional self-care. Take the time to review how you're feeling in all ways. Do you have any resentments that you need to resolve? How about jealousy or shame? Do a thorough review of how you're feeling emotionally. If there are any things that show up on your list, tend to them. Reach out and make an amends if you need to. Don't let things build up that you eventually need relief from. Remember, by keeping ourselves emotionally healthy, we position ourselves to handle whatever may come our way. Now that we have uncovered some viable ways to get our emotional health in order, let's take a look at what support systems you can put in place. So, what support systems do you really need in place to pull off a sober holiday season? Well, it always comes down to who are your people and your community. Having a group of at least a couple of people that you can count on if things go sideways, it's essential for staying sober and really for doing life. I would suggest that you identify and connect to a group of people that you can count on day or night. Ideally, these people are fellow addicts in recovery. You will want to be in touch with them regularly and possibly even daily. There's no shame in that, whatever you need. I have a group of 4 women that I rely on to help me stay sober. They know what's going on in my life, what struggles I'm currently facing, holiday plans that I have, triggers that I face, relationship status. I mean, they know everything about my life and what's going on. So that if I need to call, I don't need to catch them up. I just simply call and they know what's up. So this level of support and connection is an insurance policy to help me stay sober. When things get real, I can call any of them and someone will answer, and they always help walk me through the situation at hand. So find your people or your community and stay connected. There are so many platforms for recovery nowadays, which is so wonderful. The most important thing is to be plugged into some sort of program, whether it be smart recovery, 12-step meetings, online forums, classes, peer coaching. I mean, whatever it is for you that's working, just be plugged into that and then double up your efforts currently. Stay close to whatever platform works for you. Go to an extra meeting, attend a get together with your people. Dive in during the holidays and have that level of connection to remind you of what and why you're staying sober. So, whatever your modality is, double down and go the extra mile during the holidays for your own well being and support. And my favorite of all is the last piece of advice I have for you, which is to pour into yourself. What nourishes your spirit? Warm baths, long hikes, sleeping in, movie day, snuggles on the couch with your dog, whatever it is that rejuvenates your spirit, that's the aim here. Take time every day throughout the holidays and do something for yourself that fills you up. You cannot give to others from an empty space. You can only give if you're filled up. Identify what brings joy and comfort to you and then do it. Take the time you need and pour into yourself before you face the holidays so that you're fully charged and your best possible self. I hope that this helps you in the coming weeks as you go through your days. I couldn't imagine facing the holidays sober 21 years ago for my first sober Christmas, but everyone since has been amazing in its own way. I'm just grateful to be able to recall each and every one of them. I have shown up in a way that I'm proud of each and every time. They weren't all perfect, that's for sure, but they were certainly better than when I was drunk. I showed up as who I wanted to be, who I believe that I am, and that's the most meaningful for me. I hope you'll find the same truth for yourself. Thank you so much for listening today. These reminders are so helpful for me too. If you found this episode insightful, helpful, or meaningful, please share this with your friends, neighbors, or colleagues. Please follow me on TikTok or Instagram. And until next week, be aiming to live beyond limits.